you. Wow. Thank you. Really. Thanks. So here's my version of Michelle's story. It's a little different. Here's how this whole thing really started. Over 20 years ago, I walked into this dingy office between a laundromat and a barbecue joint in this strip mall off Western Avenue to volunteer for a group that some of you might remember as Coalition 88. They were working on insurance reform, and they were also trying to stop oil drilling off the coast of Santa Barbara. And that's when I met Michelle and Larry Frank and this great group of people who are all working for positive change. And it was this near utopian experience. No egos, no factions. At the time, I was new to all this, so I thought, well, of course it would be like that. It's always going to be that way when you're working for social change. There's never any dysfunction or runaway egos ever, right? Right? EDs and organizers out there, you can back me up on that. Well, that was 1988, and now we're here. So why do we really come to these dinners in the first place? To schmooze or network, support our friends, have community. Maybe there's even a hope that we might walk away a little inspired. At least those are the reasons that I come. But before I was in a world where I went to dinners, I got a lot of that from music. Music was my first real wake-up call. The anger of the 70s punk movement tapped into this growing sense that something was unfair, that something was just wrong. Then there were other moments in music that just spelled it out for me. Lyrics to X songs like The New World and See How We Are. Seeing Bruce Springsteen in 1984 preface My Hometown, which is a song about the decline and neglect of a city, by saying, this is your town, you need to take care of it. It may sound obvious now, but to me, it was revelatory at the time. Or seeing Billy Bragg play this inspirational show at McCabe's, a lot of fans out there, and telling the audience that buying the Sandinista album by The Clash wasn't really the same as actually doing something. And by the way, that was a real bummer. I mean, we're talking about a 3-record set that cost over $10 at the time. Like, that wasn't enough. But those confrontational words would eventually politicize me and, more importantly, move me from rhetoric to action. Around this time, I was just a music geek working at a small record store that had just become a small record label that some of you may know as Rhino Records. Now, Rhino's founders, Richard Foose and Harold Bronson, created this work culture. They created a work culture that encouraged and promoted community service and giving. You got paid time off for volunteering. 2% of the profits went to community-based work. I'm always going to be grateful to Richard and Harold because they put their money where my mouth was at the time. And I got to be a part of this culture while having a career based entirely on my passion for music. So being a record nerd actually paid off? How great was that? But let's get back to that mini mall for a second. Coalition 88 turned out just enough votes to pass insurance reform and stop oil drilling. And that's when I realized this stuff really works. It's because of that experience and so many others like it I've had with them since then that Larry and Michelle really became my political mentors and are to this day. Larry introduced me to this world of community organizing, and Michelle introduced me to Liberty Hill, where I really began to understand that whole concept of change, not charity. Now, at Liberty Hill, I learned about parts of the city that I'd driven past so many times, but essentially ignored, and I found out some really terrible things can happen here. Like a contractor dumping this mountain of concrete from the collapsed freeway in a residential neighborhood, essentially ruining the quality of life for people there. Or airport taxi drivers that work 80 hours a week because they can't make a living wage and then get threatened with losing their jobs if they even complain. Or that even in progressive, cool, enlightened Los Angeles, lesbian, gay, and transgender students are harassed every day and bullied, sometimes with the approval and even the support of teachers and administrators. Then I found out about some of the best things that can really happen in this city. Because of the work of a lot of people in this room, I started hearing about the flip side, the victories that come from organizing, getting that concrete mountain out of that neighborhood, getting back wages for those taxi drivers, getting a law passed that protects those students. At one of my first Liberty Hill events, I met an organizer who said something I'll never forget, and it altered the way I understand how change really happens, and my role in making it happen. He said, "The partnership that comes from our work and your giving is a sacred thing." He was talking about how organizers feel when they're supported, and how donors feel when they're really connected. What I think he also meant was, it's not just organizers like him that makes things happen, it's also us. Now, some of us feel bad when all we can do is write a check. But you know what? Writing a check isn't a cop-out, it's not some passive, disconnected act, it's part of making change happen. A key part. The best people doing community-based work are paid, trained, and experienced staff. Without those checks, they don't get hired. That work just doesn't happen. When you give, you're connected to that work and to this city for real. Somebody who really understood this was my friend Wally Marks. "20 years ago, Wally invited me to my first Liberty Hill dinner. Now, if you know Wally could have lived a very luxurious life, but spent so much of his time and a lot of his money to support the causes he cared about. And he got his friends to give money too. About 10 years ago, he was given the Founders Award. Now, Wally was somebody back then that I aspired to be like, and I'll always aspire to be like Wally. Most of us really don't have the time to start a community-based organization, like the recipients of the Changemakers Award that now bears Wally's name. And very few of us will make our difference in public office or through movies, TV, and music like past recipients of the Upton Sinclair Award. But the Founders Award is an honor that we can all aspire to. And truthfully, even after this evening is over, I'll still be working to live up to it. Everyone here is somewhere on a path between being a first-time attendee out there and being up here. My big hope is that some of you do end up here. And that you'll be up here bothering your friends, encouraging them to go to meetings and fundraisers and hold house parties because you understand how important it is, because really, that's how this whole pyramid scheme is supposed to work. But while I am up here, I want you to know what an honor is to receive this award, how much it means to me to have been involved with Liberty Hill for just so long. And I want to congratulate my fellow honorees. Margarita, I've known you as long as I've known Liberty Hill, and you were a big part of so many of my best experiences. Tim, I just found out about your work 6 months ago when they started planning this dinner, and I'm blown away by the creativity of what you do, and more importantly, the real results that come from how you do it. I want to thank Sarah Pillsbury for recruiting me to the board and starting Liberty Hill in the first place. That's why we're all here. And Paula Litt for always showing me how to mix pragmatism. Yeah, Paula's always showed me how to mix pragmatism with idealism and sacrificing neither. We'll complain about the left, and then we believe in the left, and we've gone back and forth, and it's been such a great conversation. And thanks to Tori Osborne and Catherine Suter for helping me grow up. And they did this by helping Liberty Hill grow up. When they were there, they really made a lot of change and got us into a different league. And thanks to all my friends who really extended themselves to be here tonight, financially and geographically. You navigated oceans, airports, rush hour traffic, and a very strong aversion to nonprofit glazed chicken dinners. I'm especially grateful to those friends who came that don't share my ideology or my political opinions. I know it's shocking, but sometimes people disagree with me, and it happens. And I also want to say thanks to everybody who was a part of this evening. I'm hoping that many of you will feel inspired when you leave here tonight. I do know that I'll see some of you up here in the next 5 or 10 years. Thank you very much.